was good, y'all. Want to say welcome to episode number two of the
Number
Two
two,
Young Pastors podcast. I am one half of the Two Young Pastors. My name is Jajuan Sanders, and I am joined by my friend, my brother.
Elijah Stanley. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Good to see you. Good to, I guess, hear you.
Yes,
See
sir.
you.
Yeah, yes,
Be
sir.
with
I
you.
mean, we can see each other,
Yeah,
and some of the people who are watching will be able to see,
that's
but the
true.
others who are listening will be
Or
able to just hear
here.
us. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Man, man. How was your weekend, man? It just went right through.
Yeah, dude. My weekend was good. I actually want to take us back a weekend, 2 weekends ago, if that's all
Yeah,
right. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, so I think we said it in our last episode, but right now we're currently um
This is a reminder. Meet people where they are.
yeah, I have a reminder to meet people where they are. One more time.
I love that. I love that. Was that Alexa?
This is a reminder. Meet people where they
It
are.
surely is, Alexa.
Oh, I
It
like
surely is.
that.
All right, so real quick. I forgot who did it, but it was in grad school back in 2018. A person was just like, Jawan, you are too hard on people. You need to learn how to meet people where they are. And
Hmm.
so, me being petty, tongue in cheek, I was like, let me set a reminder on my Echo Spot. Had to make sure it didn't hear me. So so that every day at 12 p.m. it would remind me to meet people where they are. All right.
I like that.
But so check this out though. The weekend that I really want to highlight is the weekend where my senior pastor, my lead
Mhm.
pastor, I prefer that over senior.
Yeah,
My lead pastor, Dr. Trevor Kenlock.
doctor.
Um, we celebrated him. We celebrated his wife, Carlene Kinlock, and we
Mhm.
also celebrated their daughters, Kayla and Ava. Um, we had a great opportunity to really send them off.
Mhm.
For those of you who don't know, yes, he was my lead pastor for 3 years.
Yeah.
As an assistant pastor, as a young pastor, um, and here's the thing: we got titles, but our church members, they do not care about titles at all. All right. And some of our members' eyes, I am always going to be the youth pastor. Okay. They will introduce me as not Jawan Sanders, but Jawan Saunders, our youth pastor. Okay. And so there's that. And then there will be other individuals who just say, oh, he's our associate pastor.
Mhm.
Many people don't know what an assistant pastor is,
That's
for
true.
HR reasons. Okay.
That's true.
So, um, me and Elijah here, we are assistant pastors. Okay. We're at our first assignment, of course, which means that essentially we're being mentored by our
Mhm.
lead pastors. All
Yeah.
right. That's what we're really learning in this first assignment. We're loving on God's people. We're supporting our lead pastor
Mhm.
and the vision that God has given to them.
Correct.
And we are here to learn from them. All right.
Mhm.
We're seeing pastors do ministry at a high level, at a high clip, so that when we go to our next assignment, we can kind of sort of use some of the things that we've learned here
Mhm.
and allow it to be beneficial to us in our next context. Everything
Correct.
will not always match up the same way because right now we're at some of the largest and most prosperous churches in our conference,
Mhm.
and likely we'll go to a smaller church after this. And so the
Right.
money will not look the same. However, I believe that there are some administrative tools, some
Right.
visionary skills, some people skills,
Mhm.
a number of things that we'll just be able to learn now that will be beneficial for us in the next run, right? In
Right.
the next
Right.
context, the next
Right.
assignment. And so, listen, earlier this year, he was actually elected to be our conference's next president, our conference's
Hey,
next president.
man.
Um, and I knew it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. All right. And here's why. He, uh, I knew that he was a name. We know that he was a name that was in consideration for it at constituency.
Right. Right.
He was a name that came up for vice president,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he said no. And there's wisdom in him saying no, because he knew that there were still a few tasks, assignments that needed to be finished at our church, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is that our prior president, former president, Dr. Elder Marcellus Robinson, he was elected to be our union president. And so, for those of you who don't understand how, let's say, the Adventist Church
That
works,
was a
right?
lot of structure, man. Like you said conference president, union, and then you said constituency, and then you said 3 different titles of pastors. And
Listen,
like
listen, like, and here's the thing, I fully intend to refer to these things often enough so that people can have a good understanding of what it is. Probably need to have like a graphic that really shows what everything actually looks like, because there are a lot of people who don't know how our denomination is organized.
that's
But
true.
just to make it clear, all right, let me start off, let's say, from the smallest level. At the smallest level, you have churches,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have our churches, and then those churches belong to an area. All right. So let's say my home church grew up in Sharon, SDA, in Baltimore, Maryland. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So Sharon, SDA, like the Rose of Sharon, right? That
Hey,
church belongs to the Baltimore extended area. All
yeah.
right. Baltimore Extended Area Ministerium.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a collection of churches that make up that area.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Now imagine that in every area, there's then what you would call, um, actually no,
Hey, bro,
we have areas, and then after we have multiple areas across our conference,
hey,
right?
bro. So
Yes,
I'm gonna put this up. So if you're watching, I'm gonna just write it up right now. Right. So
perfect.
you said area.
So we have our churches, our local churches.
Yeah.
Those local churches belong to a specific area.
Right.
So my home church belongs to the Baltimore Extended Area Ministerium. All
Mm-hmm.
right. The churches that myself and Elijah currently pastor at, our churches belong to the DC metro area ministerium. All
Right.
right. Okay. So we have multiple areas
Mm-hmm.
within, multiple ministerium areas within our
Yeah.
conference. Okay. All right. Our conference then is a collection of the churches uh, within the across the region. All right. So our conference, the Allegheny East Conference, it covers it covers regions from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, small part of West Virginia, and New Jersey. Okay, so we cover areas in 6 states. 6 states. All right, so that's our conference. All right, but then you have multiple conferences. Conferences like the Pennsylvania Conference,
Yep.
conferences like the Allegheny West Conference,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
happens after that is that those conferences come together to form what's called a union. All right, and
Mm-hmm.
so I believe there are five or six conferences that make up the Columbia Union. All right,
Right.
and so our former conference president, Elder Elder Marcellus Robinson, he was elevated to the position of union president. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have churches, we have areas, we have
Areas,
conference, we
conferences,
have union,
unions.
and then we have divisions. We have divisions.
Got
Okay. So let's make it plain. So we have what's called a North American division. That's the division that if you live in North America, you fall underneath the North American division.
it.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. And if you're tracking how these are constructed, the North American division is a collection of the various unions that are formed and that are functioning within the North American region.
Right.
Okay. Now we have several divisions because we have a global church. And so I believe we have a division in Africa. I could be not telling the truth because I actually don't really know how what we're doing specifically across the globe. But I believe that for every continent, aside from Antarctica,
There's usually something.
exactly. And did I freeze?
Huh?
Did I freeze?
You froze on my end. Yes. But also,
Okay, there we go. So we aside from Antarctica, I think we have about 6 divisions. So
yeah.
one for South America, one for Asia, one for Africa, one for Europe, maybe one for Australia. So we got
We have
all
7.
these
Yeah.
we got all these different divisions, and what they form at the tip top is what we call the General Conference.
Mhm.
Okay, and so my pastor, um, Trevor Kinlock, he was elevated from amazing pastor to president. Okay, and listen, man, I didn't cry. I didn't cry that day.
Yeah.
Okay. When he first shared the news, I teared up a little bit in church. Teared up a little bit in church, but I was like, I don't have the bandwidth to cry today. It was such a busy day. It was such a busy day, man. It was such a busy day.
Mhm.
But I'm grateful, extremely grateful, that we had the opportunity to truly be able to love on the family one final time as the pastoral family of the church.
Yeah.
Um, the morning service started off with us sharing several tributes. It was about 4 tributes, videos that we presented to them.
Mhm.
And it was extremely good. It was extremely good. And what ended up happening is I ended up being like the comedic relief.
Hey.
Um, and it's probably because my relationship to Kinlock is always going to be different than their relationship.
Right.
Because I mean, like, he was essentially my boss beforehand, right?
Mhm.
And now that he's the conference president, he's still my boss. And so, like, I can't get
Nothing's.
away from
Yeah.
can't get away from him. Like, we're literally going to have lunch on Wednesday. And so it's like where the conversations for them may decrease.
Mhm.
Their frequency in seeing him may decrease. It doesn't decrease for me. It doesn't. He's very much so still going to be there. And so I guess it was easier for me to provide that comedic relief
Mhm.
than for other people. But also, like, I worked closely with him.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, his greatest strengths. I know the best things about him. And I also know the things that annoy me to no end. All right. Like you work with a person and that you've worked with a person closely when they know how to get underneath your skin.
Yeah.
And he knows how to do
How you
that.
get under your
But yeah, man. But like the good news is that that is literally my mentor in ministry. He's taught me so much. Um, and so we started off with those tributes in the morning. We had lunch that I think I got to when lunch was over, that's when I finally got to eat. Okay.
That's
Because
what
I was
usually
still
happens.
running around. Like, I didn't eat until 4:50 that day, 4:50 p.m. And our evening tribute concert was supposed to start at 5,
Dang.
right? And so I ate really late, but in the evening, our ministries, they really came through strong.
Mhm.
We had a great opportunity just to really just love on him and love on his wife. Listen, y'all, we gotta love not just love on the pastor, but also love on the pastor's wife. Like, if you expect her to come to church every week, like, if
You
you
gotta
have
show something.
standards like for how you think she should show up, then you should at least be able to love on her as well
Mhm.
and honor her as well. And a lot of times, in our context, we treat the wife as though or the first lady, could be a first husband as well. We
Yeah.
treat them as though that they are also pastors,
Right.
but they're not. They have regular jobs just like you, just like other lay members. And so because of that, what ends up happening is that when it's time for them to go, at times they don't always celebrate them as much as they celebrate the pastor. But it's like, hey, if you're holding her to a higher standard, if you're holding him to a higher standard, if we're talking about a female pastor, right? Then gotta love on them. And I was just so happy that we loved on Trevor and on Carlene. It
Mhm.
was so good. We even loved on the kids. We even loved on
Hey,
Kayla and Ava. And so just affirming like, and
love
we you
that.
and I have talked about this, the importance of affirming uh your church members, your church leadership. It's something that goes a long way. Celebrating people is something that's so crucial.
Yeah, I
And
love
so
it.
that weekend, it was busy, dude. It
Hmm.
was busy, man. But I live for busy. I live for not being idle. I live for not, just being able to, like, let's say, play the Switch
Yeah,
all day long,
I like
but
how it
keeping
was within
busy.
arm's reach.
I got problems. I got problems. um, but dude, Sunday, like, literally got thrown right back into work because now that Kinlock is gone, that means that my responsibilities go up,
Hmm.
you know, and I really began to feel the weight of it all. And here's the thing: some people are like, like, I know it's not easy, and for me, I'm like, I've been waiting for this. Like, I've been waiting for an opportunity to get deeper into the work,
Deeper into it, yeah.
right? Yeah, not like just waiting for an opportunity to lead,
Hmm.
right? Which, I mean, I am. Like, I don't think there's anything to hide. Like, I want to be a leader. I'm a
Hmm.
leader. I love leading and I
Yeah.
love charting people forward. I love that, right? And so I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
afraid
yeah,
to
yeah,
say that.
yeah, yeah. It's
But
mhm.
I specifically, you know, I've just been waiting to really feel like I'm more part of the work and more part of the process and
Mhm.
everything that's happening. And as an assistant pastor, you're not always as in the weeds as the lead pastor is, and rightfully so, because there are things that in this first assignment we don't have to take care of.
Mhm.
But I'm excited because this transition period, is good for me to get prepared for the next season,
Yeah.
and for the next assignment that's coming at some point.
Mhm.
And so, honestly, I I've been excited, dude. I've
Mhm.
been excited to engage in this work. Like, I love what I do. I love what I do.
Yeah, and
And I love making
you don't hear that
organizations
often.
better. Dude, you don't.
Yeah.
But no, bro. I love this.
Mhm.
I want to get better at figuring out how to, one, make organizations better, but also how to do this work, this pastoral shepherding work. I want to figure out how to really master this as a craft,
Mhm.
so that I can build, like, great churches.
Mhm.
Like, I just want to build great churches. And I think in our time, it seems as though that, like, a lot of pastors, for some odd reason, we really get stuck at just maintaining and kind of sort of bringing in a few members,
Mhm.
while not being able to, like, exponentially grow.
You're right.
And nah, dude, I want to exponentially grow. I want to experience that. I don't know
Mhm.
what it's going to look like, but
Yeah.
I certainly want to experience, a church that's, like, bursting at the seams and
Mhm.
is healthy and fulfilling for its members. And so, bro, that was my weekend in October, that I just got highlighted. That's me. What about you,
That's
bro?
great.
What about
That's
you?
great. Man, pretty normal, bro. Um, was, was, was sick, for, like, a good amount of time, but gotten better, better, and better, bro. You're right. The same ideas of assistant, youth, and associate, those some terms that are just kind of all milled around sometimes,
Yeah.
and they're kind of just thrown at you. But what's interesting is that as you continue to do it, and as you continue to spend your years in the work, I've heard multiple members, even this past Saturday, right, say, "Hey, I've seen the growth that you've had when you first came? And I was like, yeah, because started off in pandemic and just having an online interaction, and then moving into in person, you kind of see they're like, hey, I witnessed the growth in you, and
Yeah.
just like you love your lead pastor, man, I love mine as well. Dr. Peeler,
He's great.
someone that I continue to learn from, continue to kind of grow, as he just opens up some stuff in terms of like ministry mindset, what it
Mhm.
looks like, what success looks like in ministry, a balanced life. It's really, really interesting to
Mhm.
see how week in and week out, I'm with you too. I love my job. I love what I do. Um, uh, I think I've told multiple people this because, being a pastor at our age, something I always hear is, man, at your age,
Bro.
you chose to become a pastor. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard multiple people say, I would have never. They're like, now when I'm 50, yeah, but when I was your age, no, like I would have
Yeah.
never. So like they're always like, man, I admire you for making that. And I know it comes from a good place,
Mhm.
but a part of me that hears it is like almost like I gave up better options to do this. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Bro, I
that's
hate
like the
that, dog.
underlying tone is just like, hey man, like you like there were better options and you chose to be a pastor. Like it's almost like and then I'm like, like I understand the sentiment behind it, like hey, like I praise God that you chose to go into this.
Yeah.
But for some reason, those memes, right?
Yeah.
Where like it's like the good person and then like the bad person with the hood on in the back is like, well,
Yeah.
they said like the guy with the hood is just like, man, like you could take it this way too. I'm like, nah, I
Yeah.
don't want to take it that way. But it just really, really interesting th- who you talk to,
Mhm.
especially at a young age like this, when you say you're in full-time ministry, and what they get into right away.
Mhm.
They take it two different ways. But I'm with you, man. I can't
You
wait
do.
to see how God continues to use the both of us, man,
Certainly,
and
bro.
He grows it in that. But you want to take like a quick step back, real quick, and just kind of explain the difference between a youth pastor, assistant, and an associate pastor, real quick.
Okay, so this is, I don't know if this is every conference. Um this, I don't know, it's going to be different based on your denomination. So if you're not Adventist, you know, this is not the same for you, right? But a youth pastor, your role as a youth pastor really is to primarily and only take care of youth ministry.
Hmm.
Um, y- you you're a ministry leader, essentially. You're a ministry leader, and you oversee. You're like a you're like the ministry leader, like a coordinator, right? Essentially, that like all the ministries within your department report to.
Hmm.
Okay, so you coordinate all things youth ministry. Okay, um, you may preach, especially if your church has youth Sabbath. You might be the preacher, or you might be the individual who finds the preachers for that.
Hmm.
But it differs from being an assistant pastor in that literally it's in the title. As an assistant pastor, our job is to assist the lead pastor with anything that the lead pastor desires for us. And so here's why people often confuse us with being youth pastors.
Hmm.
The reason is because we're young, just being honest, because we're young, people will naturally say, hey, I want you to oversee youth ministry.
Right.
Um, and it's because, one, it's what they had possibly gone through
Hmm.
when they were first coming in. They were likely placed over youth ministry as well. Okay, but also youth ministry is one of those departments that requires so much oversight that you can't just leave it to an unpaid member
Yeah.
who's not bought all the way in.
Hmm.
Because we're talking, at least from our church, our size, right? Let's say Metro specifically. We have our children's ministry, and what that consists of is overseeing children's Sabbath school.
Mhm.
And Sabbath school, for those of you who are not Adventists, is essentially Sunday school.
Sunday school.
But we call our Sabbath our day of
Right.
worship, or our day of rest, which is Saturday. We call that Sabbath.
Mhm.
In the Bible, Sabbath means doesn't it mean seventh and rest?
Right.
So we rest on the seventh day. We rest on the Sabbath day. That is our rest day, and so we call it Sabbath school. So they oversee Sabbath school,
Mhm.
all right. But they also oversee children's church, which can take place during main church for the adults. Then we have adventurers and pathfinders, which are essentially Christian Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Right.
Okay, for individuals who are like 4 or 5 all the way up to 17, 18,
Right.
right?
They're split into
Um,
to two, right?
yes.
Adventurers is
Once
younger,
you
Pathfinder's older.
exactly once you turn 10, you qualify to begin participating in Pathfinders.
Mhm.
Okay. So we have that. But in addition, at my church, we also have things like we have teen mentorship ministries. We have Sister to Sister for the girls, and we have Man Up for the boys. We also have a cotillion program called Le Coreal.
Mhm.
We also have a young adult ministry.
Mhm.
Okay. We also have a basketball league, and Master God Ministry sprinkles in that as well. Okay. And that's like Pathfinders, like Adventurers. We're talking about multi-age ministries. Okay.
Right.
And so that's a lot of ministries to oversee. It's a lot of ministries to oversee.
Mhm.
And to do it at a high level, you do need some skill. And so if I were just a youth pastor, I would be the individual who is solely focusing on developing those ministries.
Right.
But as an assistant pastor, my job is to really assist the pastor, be placed wherever that pastor sees fit, but also to assist, to help. If there's a gap, I feel it. I feel it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so if I see there is a gap maybe in men's ministry, I approach my senior pastor and I acknowledge, hey, I see this gap. What are your thoughts on if I can contribute a bit here, so that we can assist, so that I can support them in building this up? The pastor's like, yeah, definitely go do your thing. That's what I do.
Mhm.
Okay. If it's a gap, but if a pastor says, hey, in addition to youth ministries, I want you to oversee media ministries. I
Mhm.
want you to oversee family life. That is what I do as an assistant pastor. But the key here is that as an assistant pastor, the unspoken truth is that you're here to be mentored and you're here to
Mhm.
learn.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You are younger. You rarely see individuals who are 50, maybe 40, um, remaining as an assistant pastor for a long time, or being an assistant pastor. If you're older, you are possibly more likely to be placed at your own church by yourself,
Right. Right.
because you have experience, you
Mhm.
have age, you
The
have it,
age.
right?
Yeah.
Not saying that it won't happen. I'm just saying that it's less likely.
Right.
We have more younger pastors. When I say younger, 20s,
Mhm.
20s. We're not 20s.
Yeah.
You have more pastors who are in their 20s than you have pastors who are in their 50s.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's an assistant pastor, right? Now, an associate pastor is a pastor who can do everything that an assistant pastor can do. But the main caveat
Yes, sir.
is that an associate pastor is an ordained minister of the Adventist church.
Ordained.
Now, what does it mean to be ordained?
Tell us.
I have no idea. It seems like this very special, very special program that happens to individuals,
Oh no.
where they acknowledge that you pastored for quite some time, and that's about it. Like that, yeah. So really, that's really the difference, is that you're an ordained out minister, and
Well,
um I'm not trying to downplay what it means to be an ordained minister, but I'm trying to give it to you straight, not trying to give you the cute, uh
no.
the the business answer. But how I see it is that if you're ordained, I mean, it's just like a recognition.
It,
You
that's the word.
you served as a pastor for about 4-ish, 5-ish years. And here is
And the conference
our acknowledgement
acknowledges,
that
right?
you have served as a pastor for 4-ish, 5-ish years.
Eh,
And listen, not all ordinations are created equal. Here's
No.
what I mean by that. Okay, me and Elijah, we're assistant pastors. We have other friends who started out as senior pastors. All right, they've been leading their church since they got into ministry.
Hmm.
Our experiences have been completely different.
Completely different.
Completely different. Okay. But what I do understand is that there's a slight pay bump. And so we appreciate the ordination for that. We appreciate the ordination
It
for that.
it it it
Uh,
it's different in every conference. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's different in every conference.
Yeah. So like I have friends, right, that are in like Gulf states, right? Mississippi, Alabama, and a few others in the down south, like and they have to go through a different process. And then that same friend moved up to Carolina conference, which is North Carolina and South Carolina. And he was just like, yeah, man, like you have to go through like extended hours of being an Adventist. What's the online one where you have to go through the coursework? You have to go through coursework, like online coursework, and get a certain amount of hours on the online coursework. And then once you reach a, a certain amount of hours, then only are you able to apply to be ordained. And then they go through the process with you. So it's not years of service, it's more finish the coursework and then we can have a conversation. Like,
So also, yes, I
yeah,
agree. Like, I know I grossly minimized what it was. I
you
grossly
did.
minimized,
You
but
did.
I minimize it. I minimize it because, like, to me, it doesn't really mean much. Okay, it doesn't really mean much.
Mhm.
Like, I don't need to be ordained, in order for me to do the work that I do.
Right. Right.
Right. And pastors will tell you. They will tell you, hey, we know that you have been called by God.
Right. Right.
Right. And so this ordination is just our acknowledgement and saying that we also acknowledge and we see that you have also been called by God. Okay.
Right.
So they're very upfront with that this ordination is not the you finally made it. No, God's the one that tells you that you not that you've made it, but this is where
This
I
is what you're
called
supposed
you
to be
to be.
doing. Yeah.
Right. And so that's me. Not saying that it's not important, not saying that it's not cool. But
No,
it's
no, no,
saying
no, no.
that I kind of sort of treat it that way because it's like a one of the things that Kenlock, he said, listen, Jajuan, like no one should be able to tell you if you're called or not. God's
Mm,
the one who tells you whether you're called.
yeah.
And so no matter if the members are good to you, no matter if the members are bad to you, you should always be able to fall back on it. Did God tell me I'm supposed to be here?
Hmm.
And if God told me I'm supposed to be here, that means that I'm ordained for this, that I'm made for this, that
Yeah.
this is my calling, that I'm supposed to be here. And so that's the only reason. Not that it's not nice. I appreciate all that they do and all that they will do for us.
Right.
It's
No,
just
yeah.
a
No, it's biblically brought out, through Acts, right? There's an establishment there, right? In Acts with the laying on of hands, I see a bit there. I say a bit there, and then I also see that
the qualification a bit.
I see a bit there, and then I also see um the function that it plays within our organization as a whole, right? It is as you said, right, like that stamp of hey, they have our full support. So like going back to the organizational structure, right? The conference then gives that stamp, right? So that you can now be a minister like for
Mm,
for yeah. So I think that's that caveat in our structure that ordination plays in that I'm not sure a lot of people know is that if you're not ordained, you can only serve within the conference that hired you, right?
yeah,
You can only do marriages,
baptisms, all that stuff.
baptisms, all the rites of passages, right, in the conference. But once you're ordained, it's a system-wide approval where I can go from Maryland all the way to like California and do something. And
Or Germany.
or Germany, right? Yeah, yeah. So as long as you're within an institution, so I see the institutional standard, to kind of help have some quality control, for
Certainly.
our ministers.
Now, of course, being serious. Yes. So that is really what the difference is for an associate pastor and an assistant pastor.
Yeah.
You are an ordained minister. You have proven that you meet the qualifications of being truly an ordained minister of the Seventh Day Adventist Church. You're not just an ordained minister in a vacuum. You're an ordained minister of the Seventh Day Adventist Church, meaning that you publicly agree with
Mm-hmm.
the teachings of the Seventh Day Adventist Church, and that you
Right.
practice those things publicly as well. And depending on the conference, like Elijah said, there are certain requirements that must be met. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, in our conference, for all pastors in our conference must have um, a graduate level degree in the field of study of theology.
Mm-hmm.
It does not necessarily always have to be a master's of divinity, from my understanding, but you should have um, a certain level attained
Of knowledge.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it should be graduate level. Not all conferences have that standard.
No.
Some of their pastors may have simply been what's it called? Have a bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in the field of theology. Some pastors never had a degree in the field of theology. They just have a college degree.
Right.
Not saying if that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying that is what it is.
It
Okay?
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for our conference, we say that some of the things that we identify is that, hey, we desire that you have at least a master's degree level.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the individuals within our conference, most pastors within our conference, have a master's of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's like the base level. That's the base level. And then after that, what happens is you must serve for an extended period of time, between 4 to 5 years, because I believe that at a union level, soft, this is, I have to check, but I believe there's supposed to be at least 10 years of experience.
Mm.
And so if you consider 4 years in undergrad, maybe 2 to 3 years in a seminary, and then 3 to 4 years of full-time ministry, that would satisfy that 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also some smaller details. One, you being able to be aware of the 28 fundamental beliefs,
Right.
and being able to properly teach them. You being able to understand like what our handbook says,
Mm-hmm.
because policy is extremely important.
There's a church
And
manual, y'all. Like, in
if
case
you
you
if
didn't know.
and the church manual is necessary because we do not want to um, assume liability for our ignorance.
Correct.
Every organization needs to make sure that they have standards and practices,
Mm-hmm.
so that we are establishing and maintaining healthy environments for all people.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things, we do not desire to discriminate
No.
against any group of people.
No.
And so all those things are extremely important. And so
Right.
that is what the difference between a youth, assistant, and associate pastor. All right. And I think there are some cultural things that comes into what makes a person an associate pastor versus a senior pastor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, man. That's interesting because culturally, right, in different contexts, they mean different things.
Mhm.
So having a nice base layer identity and description for all of them, I think kind of helps kind of set that. All right, this is what. But to be honest, people are still gonna have them all mixed up, which is okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm totally fine with people saying, "Hey, that's my youth pastor." All right, yeah, that works out. And then when the moment comes when it's officially said that I'm the assistant, they go, "Wait, you're the assistant?" And then I'm like, "Yeah." And so like, like it will work itself out.
Yeah.
Don't, or like me, I don't, you know.
But I want to push back just a little bit because there are times where members will try to the word that's coming up is son when they try to son you.
Oh,
Um
hmm,
like where they try to put you in a place and I say this because we all know that there are certain unspoken things that people feel about pastors and certain types of pastors within a church. Like we know that people take senior pastors, lead pastors more seriously than they take most other pastors within their church. And so like we both understand that there are times where there will be certain members who will specifically emphasize youth pastor. This is
correct.
our youth pastor. And go ahead, talk about it because it's there.
So I've never had that happen to me at my current church, like where
Praise God.
like that emphasis is like, this is our youth pastor, so it just like diminished a bit. I've never had that experience happen. I've had moments where I correct, where if it's a guest, I go, "Yeah, my name's Elijah. I'm the assistant pastor." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry." So like, it's a correction for the benefit of the new person, right? Saying, "Hey, I don't want you to start off with the wrong information." Not for me to be like, "Well, I'm not this. I'm actually this." It's just like, "Hey, I want you to just be aware of the correct, you know, uh, structure." I haven't had the, "Hey, this is our youth pastor." Uh, uh, I I've never had that. And also,
I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it happen to a person. Yeah, I've seen it, and I was like,
how'd they react?
I mean, as a pastor, you have to be diplomatic.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like you're not going to address it in that like you're not going to address it in that moment.
yeah.
But you possibly go to your senior pastor and you ask for assistance on and perspective on how you should handle
Yeah.
that situation. And it's because there are some members who are very prideful, who are very arrogant,
Hmm.
and these are some of our members who may be like the established members who either have great pedigree from degrees, maybe salaries. They could be some of the founding members of the church.
Hmm.
And so, because they have those things, they are the members who think that they have to put you in a certain place
Hmm.
so that you know where you are on a totem pole.
What's
Um, yeah.
what's really interesting is that the older members, from my experience, are the ones that really respect positional authority. Like
Mm.
like
Ooh.
the older
Ooh.
members are really the ones, like, they'll see that you're young, but they'll never stop you or correct you in front of people because they respect the positional authority. So they'll take you, they'll say,
Touch not the Lord's anointed.
that's the way they operate. And I've noticed that it's always the older members that kind of have that deference,
Hmm.
of like, "Hey, this is the pastor," and they'll always say it in a way that's like not to hurt you, but to build you up. Most of the time, I've never had experience now where it's to like tear me down. But I have heard some of those cases where, they might be out in a different area, right, at like a youth camp, right, and then the same thing is like, "Oh, you're," and I think youth pastors tend to get the worst of it.
I've seen
Um,
both. Yeah, I've seen it.
yeah, like they
I've
get
seen
the
it.
like the, "Oh well, I can go past you and right up to the associate pastor and not even have to deal with you." And then in my heart, I'm like, "Oh man,"
Mhm.
like, and it's I think it's contextual too, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's contextual or across the board. I'm not sure if it's like the whole diminishing based off role, if it's across the board or if it's contextual.
I mean, it's a personality thing.
Gotcha.
Like if you're a prideful person, right? Um, and you maybe have a leaning to want to prove that you're better than other people, you're likely going to engage in that type of behavior.
Hmm.
And so this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. Like if you're going to take a dig at a person, if you're a person who takes digs at people, you're going to do it. And so you're right. Our older members very much so do have more of a reverence for that, and they do. Um, and I would say that it's different for the Adventist context than for other contexts, because like I've seen in certain Sunday contexts where they really respect the pastor,
Yeah.
right? They really respect the pastor. And I've seen certain contexts, let's say in the Adventist church, what I've seen from some of my African brothers and sisters is that how they view the pastor and spiritual leadership, it's a little bit different from how some of us in the African American context, how much we respect and how much we look up to and how much we put our pastors on a
It's
pedestal.
different.
It is. It's very different.
Yeah.
And so because I recognize it and because I've seen it, and I've also I've experienced members taking digs, either firsthand where they've taken the dig at me, on a prayer call, right, with other people,
I think I remember that one. You told me about that
or
one.
secondhand, where someone like you receives information from one of my members, where they're not sharing pleasant things because of a preference that they have for a pastor, right? And they try to minimize you and say, "Oh, if you were a mature pastor, you would do this differently. If you were more experienced, you would do that differently." And it's just like, I mean, I know pastors who are more successful, who have more influence, who've baptized more people than some of the people that you look up to, and they do all the things that I do. And you're saying that like you don't know that, you don't get that because you have concocted such a narrative in your head as to how a pastor should look, how a pastor should sound, how a pastor should preach. Like you've concocted this image and you've made an idol out of it. And you don't understand that when it comes to pastors, you don't have as much information as you possibly think you do.
Yeah.
Because this is not your field. Like this is not your field.
Yeah.
You want the most that you have. The most information that you have is possibly the few pastors who you really come in contact with. Because let's be honest, a lot of times they're not looking at other churches. They're not looking at other pastors, especially outside of the Adventist context. Like those members who are really arrogant, they're like, "Oh, this is how we do things here." Very mindful, very demure.
Oh no, I know.
Right? And so that's I just bring that up because I mean, like as a young pastor, these are things that we have to go through, and these are things that we're told ahead of time. Hey, there's a possibility that you will encounter this.
Oh yeah.
Like, and so this is one of the ways, or this is what it means to be a young pastor. At a certain point, there will be some members who may not trust you because you're young. And I don't know why that people don't trust. Why people feel like they can't trust.
Projection.
Like
I think a good majority of it, not the entire thing, is projection. I think because they were maybe not the most trustworthy in their youth, they're projecting that onto us. I've had a lot of the instances, the same people that tend to say, "Man, you did this, you made a decision to be a pastor now." I would have never had that thought when I was young, right? And then it's not always the same person, but it's the same mindset of like, man, when I was young, I was doing this. So he's young, or she's young, and she's probably but they got the spirituality. So like they're kind of having a like kind of go in between, and we're still writing our stories, right? Like,
You chopping up on me a little bit, buddy.
oh my bad, man. We're still in the process of figuring out ministry, right?
Yes.
So in that process, there's going to be some failures.
Yeah.
And what's great, I think that our conference does, and I have not heard the same experience from from my friends in other conferences, is that because we're paired with lead pastors that have been through ministry and past this stage, that they give us kind of the space to make mistakes, but they still hold us to a standard and say, hey, you made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Completely understand. I've been there too. Now, this is the moment to fix it. Like, I think a part of our job description as assistant pastors, right, is to kind of go through the first years of pastoral ministry and make the mistakes now, where
Please.
they can be fixed and retooled, so that when you're sent out, right, it's just like, all right, like you won't find as much grace because there's no one to cover you.
I value that. That's so true.
Yeah.
I've learned how to take responsibility for things and just learn the importance of saying sorry
Yeah.
in this space.
Yeah.
Like where before I didn't think that I could say sorry because I didn't think I could make mistakes. I've learned the value that, hey, making mistakes is not a problem.
Mhm.
It's necessary for you to do it right now so that when you are farther along on your journey, like, and you possibly do have a bigger stage, you don't make it there. You don't make it there.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. I
Yeah,
love
man.
that. Listen, man, time's passed.
Yeah. It's been an hour.
And we could keep going, but time has certainly passed.
Yeah.
And so let's close this out on here. I think like what the vibes that I'm getting right now is more like Timothy vibes, first and second Timothy vibes, where
Mm,
Paul was giving instruction to Timothy, especially since like we're assistant pastors.
yeah.
Our two senior pastors, lead pastors, Dr. Peeler, Dr. Kenlock, they're like our Pauls. We're their Timothy,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
us they indeed were showing us how we need to be ministers, how we
Yeah.
can be the best leaders that we could possibly be for the next generation.
You're right. You're right.
Because that's really what they're preparing us for. They're preparing us to be the pastors to lead the next generations that will come.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting those types of vibes from our conversation today. And so let's end it here. Yeah, guys, we know we still owe you a conversation on like the whole alcohol thing that we told y'all about. We're going to get into that next episode. We promise. We promise. We're going to make sure that we're prepared. So we're going to get into that next time. But for now, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to
Yeah.
like, subscribe, and to share this. If you think
Mhm.
there are individuals who could benefit from getting this closer look on what pastors think from their point of view and how pastors operate from their point of view, please, we want to form a community here. So that's all from me. Elijah,
Yeah.
you got anything to share on your end?
Yeah, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or things that you're like, hey, would love to kind of know the ideas or the background behind it, or some questions you have, go ahead and drop it. DM us on the At the Well page, or the comments below, and then we'll make sure that we try to get to them. Just want to kind of open it up and see and kind of share and have some light behind what it means to be two young pastors here. So love you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.
Peace.